A little girl tugged at Karoline's sleeve, pointed at her cross necklace, and asked a question so simple yet so powerful that it brought tears to her eyes. The community center in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, buzzed with life. The scent of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries hung in the air, mixing with the chatter of townspeople who had gathered for the evening's meet and greet. It was the kind of place where neighbors still knew each other by name, where life slowed down just enough for people to truly connect. Karoline Leavitt stood near a folding table stacked with pamphlets, smiling as she shook hands and answered questions. She had always enjoyed events like these, not for the attention, but for the conversations, the real, unfiltered stories people shared with her. Those quiet moments of honesty reminded her why she did what she did. As she chatted with an older woman about local schools, she felt a light tug at her sleeve. At first she thought nothing of it, but then the tug came again, persistent, small. She turned, glancing down. A little girl stood there, barely 7 years old, with chestnut curls framing her round, freckled face. She clutched the hem of her floral dress, her wide brown eyes locked on Karoline's necklace. Karoline crouched down, leveling herself with the child. "Hey there," she said softly, offering a warm smile. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated, then answered just as quietly, "Samantha." "Well, it's nice to meet you, Samantha." The child's gaze didn't waver. Instead, she pointed a small, slightly trembling finger at the delicate gold cross resting against Karoline's collarbone. "What does your necklace mean?" The room around them didn't go silent. Not really, but to Karoline, the air shifted. The question was simple, innocent, yet it carried a weight she hadn't expected. For years, that cross had rested against her skin, close to her heart. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a reminder, a marker of something bigger than herself. And for the first time in a long time, someone was asking her to explain it. She opened her mouth to answer, but no words came. Instead, her mind took her somewhere else, back to a night she had spent years trying to forget. She had been 19, a freshman at Belmont University in Nashville, excited about her future but struggling more than she let on. She was balancing classes, 2 part-time jobs, and the nagging feeling that she wasn't good enough. Faith had been part of her upbringing, but in that season of her life, it felt distant. She went through the motions, Sunday services, whispered prayers before bed, but it all felt hollow, like she was speaking into an empty room. Then came the phone call. Just after midnight. The dorm room dimly lit by the glow of her laptop screen. She had been cramming for an exam when her phone vibrated. She almost didn't answer, but something told her she should. The moment she heard her mother's voice, she knew. Her grandmother, the woman who had taught her how to bake biscuits from scratch, who always smelled like lavender and spoke about faith like it was as real as the ground beneath their feet, was gone. A sudden heart attack. No warning. No goodbye. Karoline barely remembered the next few hours. She only recalled the quiet sobs of her roommate in the background, the icy numbness in her chest, and the suffocating weight of realizing she would never hear her grandmother's voice again. When she arrived at her childhood home, everything felt wrong. Her grandmother's chair sat empty. The air felt heavy, thick with things left unsaid. That night, unable to sleep, she wandered into her grandmother's bedroom. The scent of lavender still lingered, clinging to the blankets and pillows. On the nightstand, a single object caught her eye, a delicate gold chain, the cross pendant resting against the worn pages of a Bible. Her grandmother had worn that necklace every day of her life. Karoline picked it up, her fingers brushing against the cool metal. The weight of it in her palm felt different, like it wasn't just jewelry, but something more, something she wasn't ready to understand yet. She slipped the chain over her head, letting the pendant rest against her chest. It was cold at first, unfamiliar. Then, as if the weight of it suddenly became too much to bear, she broke down. Tears came hard and fast, shaking her entire body as she sank onto the bed. It wasn't quiet, dignified crying. It was the kind of grief that rips through you, leaving you raw, breathless. Through the tears, she whispered, "If you're real, if you're really out there, I need to know. I need to feel something, anything. Because right now, I feel nothing at all." The silence that followed was deafening. No voice from the heavens. No sudden burst of warmth or clarity. Just the distant hum of crickets outside the window. But then, something happened. Not a voice. Not a vision. Just a shift, barely noticeable, but unmistakable. Her heart, which had felt like it was tearing itself apart, slowed. The tightness in her chest loosened just a little. Her breathing, ragged and uneven, steadied. And somewhere deep inside, a whisper of warmth settled into the coldest parts of her. It wasn't an answer. It wasn't a solution. But it was something. For the first time since that phone call, she wasn't drowning anymore. Back in the present, Karoline blinked, still kneeling before the little girl. "My grandmother gave me a necklace just like this," she finally said, her fingers grazing the cross. "At first, I thought it was just jewelry. But after she passed, I realized it was something much bigger. It reminded me that even when I felt alone, I never really was." Samantha's eyes flickered with something, recognition, understanding beyond her years. "My mom used to wear one," the girl whispered. Her tiny fingers reached up to her own neck, where there was nothing but bare skin. She had to sell it. We needed food more than jewelry. Karoline's chest tightened. Without hesitation, she reached behind her neck, unclasping the chain. The little girl's eyes widened as Karoline took her hand and gently placed the necklace in her palm. "It's yours now," Karoline said softly. The girl stared at the cross, her lip trembling. "But I can't." "Yes, you can," Karoline interrupted with a gentle smile. "And whenever you wear it, I want you to remember, you're never alone." Samantha's fingers curled around the necklace. Tears welled in her eyes. Then, without warning, she threw her arms around Karoline's neck. Sometimes, the most powerful moments don't need words at all.